Hello and welcome back to another week on the Self-Ruled podcast. I am your host, Hannah Holden, and this is the source to accelerate your self-belief and become the person you're meant to be. This week I wanted to do something a little bit different and share a little bit about an experience I had over the weekend. I had signed up on a wait list to be part of a Huts for Vets trip, which are veteran trips in Colorado through a nonprofit called Huts for Vets. And I had signed up to be on the wait list for a women veterans trip, and I got in. And I probably found out maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, but to be totally honest, I was a little preoccupied and didn't really train for it because it was going to be a pretty intense hike. But I do go to the gym and have been doing more endurance training the last few months. So I think that definitely helped. But what I wanted to share about the trip was more around how I really unplugged for the trip and what some of the benefits of that were. So I don't know if any of you have ever heard of a dopamine detox. I wasn't necessarily thinking that phrase when I went on this trip, but I remember coming across a YouTube video a few years ago during COVID. I think during COVID, when a lot of us were stuck indoors or stuck at home, and there was just that big shift that if you were like me, you might have been spending a lot more time on social media, scrolling, all of that. And I remember a couple of times realizing that I was super worn out because I'd been overstimulated by screens and really all this dopamine that I was getting from spending excessive time on screens and social media. And so I remember coming across this video back then on how to do a dopamine detox. And I did do a short one back then where I specifically woke up in the morning and followed all of the tips. So I woke up in the morning, I didn't have any caffeine, I didn't check my phone, I didn't listen to any music, I didn't have any really stimulating food, and I just got in my car and drove out to a state park and went on a nice long hike for a few hours. And that really did cure what I was feeling, because I was having headaches, I was feeling really low, almost depressed. So it's so funny how when we have excess of dopamine, how if you've really ever experienced that, it can almost just feel like some kind of burnout. And when I did that detox, I felt incredible, and it was almost just like wiping the slate clean. And then I came home and I was fine after that. So I haven't done anything like that in a while, but I had signed up for this trip, and there were a lot of beautiful things about this trip. If you've been listening, you might have heard me mention that I'm a Marine Corps veteran. And this trip was actually the first time that I've ever gone on a woman veteran specific event, retreat, something like that. I've spoken at a woman veterans retreat before, but I've never been a participant of something like that. And it truly was a beautiful experience to be around other women veterans. For those of us that went into the military, a lot of times we are around a lot of women in training. At least I was in the Marine Corps. When I went through boot camp, it was all women. But as I went into my career, went to different units, a lot of times I was one of the only women, or there might have only been a few of us. So I really didn't have opportunities to be around lots of other women in the military or women veterans. And I'm glad I got this experience. It has been 15 years since I got out of the Marine Corps, but what a special experience to spend a weekend with other women veterans. We were completely taken care of. We flew into Aspen. We were picked up. We were brought to base camp. The meals were planned. The trip was planned. Everything. It was truly wonderful. It was challenging. We hiked 9.5 miles, and at the highest, we were at 12,000 feet in elevation. So it was definitely a challenging trip. But one of the outcomes of this trip was the fact that I was not on my phone at all. I didn't have cell service. I didn't bring my computer, and I knew that I wasn't going to have cell service. So leading up to this trip, I would say the last few days before the trip, I remember just kind of setting this intention for myself that I was going to completely unplug and really make the most of that experience and be in full acceptance of being unplugged. And so that made it very easy when I got there to just turn my phone on airplane mode so I could take pictures and not even worry about trying to get signal. And actually, this showed me how far I've come in life, because there was a time where I think I would have struggled with that. I would have been trying to get signal, wanting to check my messages. But I truly felt like there was nowhere else I needed to be. There was no email or text I needed to see. There was no one I wanted to talk to, which is kind of a scary feeling, yet very liberating feeling, because it meant that I was committed to being fully present for those 4 days. Yeah, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Those 4 days, I was fully committed to being present and being without distraction of any kind of electronics. And it allowed me to fully unplug, fully immerse myself in the experience of what was some very beautiful but also challenging hiking in the Colorado mountains. Also, fully being present with the other people there, having conversations, connecting, being present with the tasks that we were doing, the little chores that we were doing. We were washing dishes by hand, cleaning, just to kind of, people were chopping wood. I didn't chop any wood, but people were chopping wood. But there's almost something meditative when you get rid of all of the distractions, all of the cell phones, and you're just so fully present in all of that. So the chores, present in that. And then I was also just really present when I was walking around in nature and observing the flowers and observing the trees and just feeling that experience. And it really allowed me to just clear my mind, kind of strip all of that noise and reset. And I just don't think we get a lot of opportunities to fully reset like that. But it's really important for us, because a lot of times we have so much buildup. We've been going for a while, for weeks, for months, maybe even years, without just having that cleanse. And I was just so grateful that I had a chance to have that cleanse. And at one point on the trip, we all had an hour in the woods by ourselves. They kind of spaced us out, and it was just time to reflect or take a nap or whatever we wanted to do. I took a nap for a little bit, but then I just remember sitting there up against a tree and just being so meditative and so reflective. And when I have experiences like this, when I travel, when I'm, getting away, I kind of like to set intentions or really be present enough to soak in what I'm supposed to learn or get from certain things, my kind of the takeaways. And I remember just kind of asking myself multiple times throughout the weekend, what am I supposed to take away from this? What do I need to be focused on in my life right now? And the answer just kept coming through loud and clear, and it was love. It was just so simple, love. And it was self-love, love for other people, love through the work that I do, more time with my loved ones. And it was just so crystal clear. And it's amazing how when we're back in our typical environments, it gets so much more muddled than that. We have all these things we think we need to be doing. We overcomplicate things. We overthink things, and the lens gets dirty. But there's something about getting out there in nature that is spiritual, meditative. It is really cleansing and just kind of takes us back to the foundations. And so I really came back from that trip I did process a lot. I'll just give you a little tidbit that there was a lot of processing going on for the women on this trip because of our experiences in the military, our experiences as women. And some of us, that is more fresh than others. Mine has been 15 years since I was in the military. But for others, it's really fresh. And I'm not going to go deep into that, but I will just say that the experience of being a woman in the military is a unique experience. And they're not all exactly the same, but there can be a lot of trauma. There can be a lot of adversity for women in the military. So there was a lot of that emotional processing going on for everyone there. But at the same time, I was doing my own processing of, hey, why are we here? What are we supposed to take away from this? What do we want to take away from this? How do we want to re-enter society at the end of these 4 days? And so I really came home reflecting on, okay, how can I be more loving to myself? How can I show up with more love in the work that I do, spend more time with loved ones? And so I really came back feeling that refreshing kind of reset in my life. And one of the first things I did when I got back was spend some time just loving on myself, resting, recovering from all of the miles. We hiked like 22 miles. But then I also, the second day I was back, spent time with family. My nephews came over. And so I wanted to share about this because I think we just don't get a lot of opportunities to really get away and unplug. But when we actually get away somewhere and unplug, whether it's forced because there's no service or we just choose to power off our electronics and all the noise, that is when we really are able to get in tune with ourselves and really hear our intuition and really hear direction and really get that clarity. So this week's episode is really just a shout out for you to give yourself the gift of a cleanse, a reset, wipe the windshield, go somewhere, get some clarity, realign with yourself, because we really need it. We really need it. And I really hope that I don't wait as long to do this again. And I hope you don't wait and you go take a trip or unplug for the day or do something to take care of yourself and find that quieter inner voice that wants to speak to you. So that's what I have for this week. Hope you're doing well, and I'll talk to you next time.